You all enjoying yourselves?
Yeah.
We got the best crowd in the front here. I'm going to tell you a story. It's not really a story, but one thing about Chris and myself, he's right when he says that we've been friends for a long time. But I just want to point out that when we reconnected in 98, 99, Chris was the chairman of the legislative committee or policy committee for the Cerro Gordo County Farm Bureau. And now he's the president of the Iowa Farmers Union. So I would argue he's better for having known me.
I actually seen the light.
So I want to talk a little about market competition and packer ownership and about the Farm Bill a little bit too, because obviously we're right in the middle of it. I was blessed the other day with the opportunity to go back to our family's farm near Doherty, Iowa for one night. I always enjoy spending the night there because I sleep better. You know, it's darker and quieter, and you know, one's childhood home is always home in a way that no place else really is. But in the morning, I was a little more unsettled because, you know, it's harvest season now. And when I was young, that meant field work. And I noticed as I left the farm that day, it occurred to me that there used to be 11 active farms on the 7-mile stretch of road between our farm and Sheffield, Iowa, where I went to high school. Now there are 3. The hogs are all gone, and almost all the cattle are gone. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, the livestock are still out there somewhere. They're owned and controlled by some meat packing company and raised in some vertically integrated industrial facility. And the crops still get planted, but most of the tractors and the people driving them come from further down the road. So as I drove away that day, I sort of paraphrased an old riddle in my head. You know, the one about if a tree falls in the forest, right? But what I thought to myself was, if an abandoned barn collapses in rural America and nobody's there to hear it, does that mean that farm policies fail? If there's no future in agriculture, if there's no future for the next generation, can anyone reasonably argue that federal farm policies have been good for family farmers in rural communities? Cerro Gordo County, where Chris and I grew up, has some of the best farmland in the world. There should be livestock farmers and families with children there building up for the coming year. But at present, there are a lot fewer of those than there used to be. But there's hope, okay? And, you know, no matter how harsh and long the winter, spring always comes. And just to tell a story about hope, right, that maybe is not related to farm policy real quick. The day that I left the farm, I went to Doherty, Iowa, which is just 3 miles from our farm. And I bought some flowers at Becky's Greenhouse, which is one of the handful of businesses still operating in Doherty. And I asked Becky about the post office, because a few years ago, people at Doherty found out that they were going to lose their post office. And they could have called it quits right there, but they didn't. They passed around a petition. They got almost 300 signatures, which isn't too bad for a town of 90 people. They assured me that no one signed twice. They told their story to the media, and they eventually even had USA Today come to town and do a story on them. They sent their petition to the Postmaster General, and they showed up at Postal Service hearings. They lobbied elected officials, including the governor. Now, their fight isn't over, not by a long shot, but just recently, Doherty got a new postmaster, and they've got a little hope. So my question for you is, as we go forward and talk about the Farm Bill just for a couple minutes, and about livestock concentration, what would happen if millions of rural Americans did what the people of Doherty did? What if we petitioned and wrote letters and lobbied representatives and senators and presidential candidates for rural policies that make sense? What if we showed up and said no? No more farm bills. No more farm bills that undermine rural communities and drive family farmers out of business. What would we do specifically? Well, first of all, 2 things I want to make mention of. One, Senator Grassley, who's going to speak to this subject, right? And Senator Dorgan from North Dakota, a good friend, have offered an amendment to the Farm Bill to put real payment limits on federal farm programs. so that we stop subsidizing consolidation and bigness, and we start targeting our farm program efforts to family farmers. The thing that makes me the saddest about going back to my farm and leaving again is that no one will ever farm our farm again after we leave. Not if things remain the way they are now. Of course, someone will till the soil and plant and harvest, but no one will farm there and no one will live there. If a beginning farmer wanted to farm our land, we would do whatever we could to help, but he would not be able to afford to add on to our small farm because the current farm bill has driven land costs to the point where young farmers have literally no chance. And the only so-called farmers still buying land are mostly speculators, including the banker that's buying an 80 from us. So perhaps we could decide here today that we're going to have a farm bill for Iowa and for the Midwest and the rest of the nation that supports family farmers, and especially beginning farmers and the communities that have grown up around them. A farm bill with real payment limits, no tricks, no more loopholes, no more multiple entities, but real farm payment limits that level the playing field and bring young families back to our communities. The Dorgan Grassley Amendment would do that. I encourage you, when you talk to presidential candidates and everyone else who's got a vote, to talk about it. I've heard many farmers say they'd rather have no farm bill than one without payment caps, and I don't know, perhaps they're right. But I'll say this, there's nothing in the current farm bill that's worth trading away for payment limits. Any farm bill without payment limits is doomed to fail, and the people who will suffer the most are the family farmers and the rural people living in places like Doherty and Sheffield. And so what else can we do besides that? And this is what the topic of my conversation is for a couple minutes. Let me put it to you this way. In a world where packers own all the hogs and cattle, what need is there of farmers and ranchers? I mean, sincerely, what need of there is me or Chris or your organization? If the packers own all the livestock, they don't need us, and they won't want us, clearly. Meat packers claim that vertical integration increases efficiency, but that is a lie. Now, let's take a moment. I do a lot of work with the media. I'm a communications person. I choose my words carefully. Let me say that again. That is a lie. It's an untrue statement that's meant to deceive. Small and mid-sized farms and ranches have demonstrated time and again they can match or beat the cost of production in the packers' industrial facilities, time and again. Our land grant institution right here in Iowa, other land grants around the country have demonstrated this time and again. The work of Mike Duffy and others has shown it time and again. Family farmers are efficient. Packers use vertical integration and captive supplies to manipulate livestock markets, depressing cattle and hog prices across the board by killing their own when prices are high and turning to independent producers as residual suppliers when prices are low. So, you get the short end of the stick both ways there. Lack of market access when markets are good, difficulty getting chain space when prices are high, but you can sure bring your hogs to the market when prices are low. Senator Tom Harkin and Senator Chuck Grassley and others have said they will fight for family farmers and ranchers and have proved as good as their word by offering legislation to increase competition in livestock markets. Senator Harkin and others have crafted a good set of competition policies that are currently in the Senate Farm Bill, including a federal ban on packer ownership of livestock.